I think that right now there's a lot of buzz going on about the data. Who owns that data? Who should have access to that data? And right now the PIMS are the ones in charge of all of that. I'm seeing, on LinkedIn and things like that, people are pushing back on who should be the gatekeepers of that information and who should be owning that information. And it's honestly never something that I'd even considered about until I started reading, these perspective pieces. I do think that the days of PIMS controlling everything are probably numbered. It won't be long before somebody breaks through that barrier and now there's a more integrated approach for everything. It won't be long. And then everybody who's gatekeeping is going to be tossed to the side.
Welcome back to Irreplaceable Truths, where we talk about the real pressures of veterinary medicine and the lessons that help veterinarians stay in the profession and do it well. Today's conversation is different. We are talking about technology, but not as a trend. We're asking a better question. What problem in veterinary medicine became so constant, so heavy, and so ignored that a practicing veterinarian decided it had to be solved? Our guest is Dr. Jamie Laity, a practicing veterinarian, former hospital owner, mentor, and founder of SmartVet AI. She argues that veterinarians are not failing because they lack knowledge. They are struggling because practice demands nonstop decisions, nonstop communication, and almost no room for mental fatigue. That is the conversation today. What she saw, why she built this, where veterinary medicine is still making life harder than it needs to be, and what this could change for a working veterinarian tomorrow. Welcome to Irreplaceable Truths. Hey, Jamie, how you doing?
Welcome. I'm good. Thank you.
Welcome to Irreplaceable Truths. Your story is so amazing. You were a veterinarian, and now you're an entrepreneur. But we'll get a little bit into SmartVet AI into this. But I really want to know your story. How old were you when you really decided, hey, you know what? I really want to be a veterinarian?
Yeah, like 12. I was one of those girls that was like horse obsessed. I tell people now, I joke that it was a lack of imagination that I became a veterinarian because, every little girl like falls in love with horses and then like you want to be a vet. And I just never expanded on that. But anyways, I thought I wanted to be a horse vet. I went to University of Kentucky, still thinking I wanted to be a horse vet. I worked at Rood & Riddle, which was at the time a phenomenal place, huge environment to learn about equine medicine, and I cried every night. It was just not what I thought I was going to love. And then I had to kind of pick myself up from that and figure out now, okay, I'm 19 years old and I moved away from everything I know and I don't want to be a horse vet anymore. And so that's kind of how it started.
So you got the experience before, I would say, the 38% of the profession that's struggling. I don't know how much of that they had before. So you actually were at Rood & Riddle, which is one of the world-renowned equine, right? And you're like, holy crap, this is not what I signed up for.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of my best moments, most defining moments, I wouldn't say best, but most impactful things in my journey through this profession have been the things that didn't land, the things that weren't what I was hoping. So shortly after my whole identity crisis of I've told everybody my whole life that I was going to be a horse vet and now I'm not, then I met up with a small animal internal medicine specialist in Kentucky who was phenomenal. And he was so inspirational to me. And I would just go on my Tuesdays and Thursdays when I didn't have labs in the afternoon, and I would just hang out, watch him do scopes, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. And so then I was like, that's it. I'm going to be a small animal internal medicine specialist. Okay. So then I get accepted to Georgia. I go through my entire vet school career up until fourth year saying, I'm going to be an internist. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and I'm specialized. And like when you go through that entire 4 years with that lens on, you probably tune out some other things that maybe could have been important as well. But I don't care about worms. I'm going to be an internist. Um, and then,
Well, Georgia is kind of like the capital of worms. Georgia and Florida,
yes,
North Carolina, that
yeah,
whole Atlantic
yeah.
seaboard.
And I was like, I don't care about these worms. Don't that whole semester. Do not talk to me about all these worms. I need to know. I'm only going to care about Cushing's. Okay, so we get um, around
And every case has Cushing's when you graduate, by the way.
Yeah, right. Around fourth year, I started reading a book called My Personal MBA. And it was this whole premise of you don't need to spend all your money getting an MBA. There are these list of books that you should read and get practical real world experience. And I had a library card because I was a poor vet student. So I went to my public library and I checked out these books, and that's what I read. I wasn't reading about diabetes and Cushing's when I went home. I was reading all of these like business books, self-help, things like that. And then in fourth year, I was talking to one of the surgical residents who was one of my friends. And I was like, I should have never gone to vet school. I really like business. And she was like, why can't you do both? And I was like, what do you mean? I can either treat worms or I could do something completely different. And she was like, no, that's not how it works. And so again, it was this other realization that I didn't spend my time reading about diabetes and Cushing's, and that didn't fill my cup. And that this other thing that I wasn't expecting did. And so as I was trying to decide what internship I wanted to do, because this was during the recession when like 30% of your class didn't get a job. So you did an internship because that was your foot in the door to get anywhere else. I was trying to decide what kind of internship I was going to do. And I didn't want to do the academic internships because I didn't want to go on and specialize. And I felt like that was just a stepping stone. That was my head at the time. And so I did a general practice internship at a 24-hour hospital in Charlotte. And it was incredible. And I fell in love with worms. And I fell in love with client communication. And I fell in love with emergencies. And I fell in love with all of the things that make up general practice. But also, this was a privately owned 24-hour hospital. And I got a ton of business experience from the owner who kind of took me under his wing and taught me a lot about business. So then I got a little bit of everything, and that's what made me fall in love with veterinary medicine now 10 years into my journey that thus far.
Well, you were blessed because you had that equine internal medicine specialist that took you under his wing or her wing and said, let me show you how wonderful this is.
Yep.
And you actually had a professor at the University of Georgia that looked at you and said, you can do both.
Yes.
You can do business and you can do medicine. Because a lot of times I think it gets lost in translation that you do not need to go into clinical medicine to be a veterinarian and to make an impact in this profession.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am grateful for all of those experiences along the way, and even the ones that were at the time I felt horrible, like that I didn't enjoy and that I thought, what have I gotten myself into? And there was a lot of like pain in those moments of, okay, this is not what I was expecting. How do I redefine myself at this point? Because that was kind of my identity. But those were some of the most defining moments in my career, when I look back on how did I get to where I am, I, those moments.
Have you ever stopped and thought, you know what, I should still go get my MBA, or I should still go back and get some other business credential?
Yeah, that's a really
Or are
good
you
question.
happy where you're at?
I don't feel that same pull the way that I did then. I think that, okay, so since then, I have had multiple businesses. And could I have, could I grow from other experiences that teach me more about that? Yeah, absolutely. But there was a time in my life where I was like, I just want to own my own clinic. This is what I want to do. I want to kind of that identity, And then I went and did that and I enjoyed it. And then something shifted where that wasn't my driving force anymore. And I think that for me personally, as Jamie Laity, that what I've learned about myself in the last 14 years of doing this is that I do really like the growth. I like new adventures. I like the versatility that the profession offers. It's easy to get stuck in a rut and just do the same thing, but I like that I can use a skill set that I have and market myself in different ways, and I can just do more. I can be more. Um, and so that's kind of, I started my own practice. It was the only AAHA accredited fear-free hospital in our area, and I grew it to 6 doctors, and I sold it when I had 2 kids. That practice is now the current AAHA practice of the year, and I'm really proud to say that I was part of that journey. That I built that, like that's really cool. And then I started a mobile practice, and that's what I do now, and I love it. And then on the side, I started, an app to help cognitive fatigue. So I like building. I like growing. I like doing new things.
Is failing acceptable to you?
In the moment, it kind of sucks. But when I look back on my path, I think that the moments where I perceived as a failed moment, or maybe just not what I was hoping or what I expected, I think those were the moments that I grew the most and that I kind of picked myself up and moved on. Here's a fun story. I don't know if it's that fun, but it's interesting to me. When I was an intern, baby doctor, um, our first 6 months, we had a review where we got graded or evaluated by all of our mentors. And then we sat down and this big, scary meeting with the boss. And they tell you exactly what your mentors think of your performance. And I got a lot of great marks, and it was on a scale of 1 to 5. And on surgery, I got 2s. I was terrified of surgery. I felt uncomfortable in surgery. And so in that moment, I had to decide, okay, am I going to write off surgery because I don't like it? It makes me uncomfortable. I can just focus on the things that I'm really good at. Or am I going to take the next 6 months of my internship where I have the support and the mentorship around me? And am I going to really dive in and learn how to do surgery in a way that I feel at least like I've tried, at least I'm good enough. And so that's what I did. And now surgery is one of the things that I'm most proud of. I'm good at it. I'm capable. I'm efficient. Um, and if it weren't for that moment of failure, I got a 2. That as a workaholic veterinarian, we don't like 2s out of 5s. Like that's not cool. That was a blow. Anyways, but in that moment, like, what am I going to do with that? And so that was a defining moment for me on how am I going to pick myself up from this and move forward. And I love surgery, but I don't just love surgery. I like all the other parts that we do with veterinary medicine as well.
And you've also said you love mentoring baby docs, as you call them, baby
Yeah,
docs. And I think you said what was your nickname? They called you an asshole?
asshole. I was a really obnoxious baby doctor. I came in hot. You couldn't tell me anything. I'd ask you. I think I was looking for validation that what my plan was a good one, but I would ask everybody what they would do, and ultimately I did what I wanted. And so yes, I was the asshole.
So, what's more rewarding to you? Is it the see one, the do one, or the teach one?
Hmm. I don't think the C one feels rewarding. I think that first do one is probably pretty rewarding because like I did it. Um, I do like the teach one. When I have the mental bandwidth to do it. And I think that that's an important part of this conversation as a veterinarian, as a entrepreneur, as someone who has done a lot of different things. Sometimes the bandwidth isn't there to help the baby doctors because it is exhausting. But it is so important and so rewarding. And like, I look back at the last couple of years at my clinic, my brick and mortar that I had, and we sent multiple people to vet school and they're on their way, and these are people who came in as high school students and wanted to watch surgery, and then I got to write them a letter of recommendation. And then now they're sending me their, graduation announcements and things like that. And that makes me feel really proud. I feel proud to be part of that journey. Um,
What was your number?
5.
I got 20.
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. That was, it was just neat. It was neat to see.
It's amazing. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
to
And
see
how
them.
are they? Are any of them in practice right now?
Yeah,
And how are they doing?
I think good. I'm not great at following up. I see people on Facebook, and I'm like, look at you go, Doctor White. Like pretty cool.
Maybe you should become the asshole again and start finding out how they're doing.
I should start bothering people.
Yeah. I think, for me, it's always the mentoring or the seeing someone else succeed. It almost, it's like that parental figure as a
Yeah.
veterinarian that you are, and the parental figure as a mentor. That makes it really, I think the feeling of pride is probably
Yes.
one of the greatest feelings you could ever have as a clinician.
I.
Whether it
There were
be,
most
no, but whether it
recently.
be a student or a client or a staff member, when they say something to you and it makes you feel proud, there's nothing that can damage that.
There was a vet that I mentored recently, and phenomenal girl. She had a hard time passing her boards, and she took them 2 or 3 times and didn't make it. And she had already been out of school, and she came to me, and I said, "Okay, we're going to take the next 6 months. You're going to be essentially a technician type figure for now, but you're going to do that with me. You're going to be in surgery with me. You're coming into the exam rooms with me. You're going to be writing records with me, like taking on those doctor roles, um, and like treating her like a doctor because she is." And you know what? As soon as she just like settled in and somebody else said, "You've got this, like you're going to be fine," she passed with no problem. And then she stayed with us and became an amazing clinician. Clients loved her. She was one of those doctors who could go into the exam room and kind of read the room and figure out what it was that they really were needing. Not necessarily like here's all of the academic recommendations we can make, but like let's talk about what's right for you, your pet and your family. And I think that that was really beautiful, and I was proud to be part of that journey with her.
So she really had the emotional intelligence piece down.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. She just needed, I think it was like in her head that someone, maybe herself, didn't feel good enough, or like that imposter syndrome. Like we all feel that. But as soon as she started like getting it, like, yeah, I can do this, it clicked. And like she took off and she was phenomenal. She still is phenomenal. I'm proud of her.
Well, now you're dabbling in entrepreneurship as well
Yeah.
again.
Yes.
Do you think you have ADHD? Because I really think a lot of all of us that are entrepreneurs.
You know, it's funny that you ask that. Sometimes I look at myself and go, why can't I sit still? I wouldn't have said that as a kid. Like I was a pretty driven kid, but also like if we had had all the words to acknowledge our I don't even know what you call it, but all the spectrum of everything as kids, could I have been diagnosed with something? Who knows? I have no idea. But now I do feel like I always live a little bit in the future in my head, like what's next, what's coming next. And so sometimes I have a hard time sitting still or being in the moment because I'm not worried, I'm daydreaming, planning on what am I going to do next. Um, and I've talked about when my life settles down and I don't have two small kids, like I've talked with you about before doing a baby doctor boot camp, something to let's let's dig in and get a couple of good, strong foundational skills and send you on your way, But who knows? Who
Maybe
knows where
after
that'll.
doing boot camp, we're going to give you 2 hours of sleep a night.
Yep. Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
to get
You'll write. You'll write
caffeine,
all my
nicotine,
records for me.
alcohol.
Yeah.
Caffeine, nicotine, alcohol is the only thing you're going to get.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fine. And everybody will just be rocking my
Play
corn.
loud sirens all the time because then you'll get used to the client,
Exactly.
speaking to you.
Yes. Yeah. It'll be great. Yeah. Come to my baby doctor boot camp. Come on, guys. I haven't started signups yet, but get on the wait list.
Oh man. Well, I really think there needs to be something because what do you see then because of the baby doctor boot camp? What do you see these new grads struggling with the most when they come out?
I think that right now it's probably having people dedicated to them to support them. When I was an intern coordinator, there was a sense of that was my job. I needed to make it happen. I needed to make the time, find the time. You know, I would audit their records. I would correct them, give them back, like in my pink pen everywhere, just ink everywhere. I would be in the surgery room with them. Sometimes I'd go into the uh, exam rooms with them. So while I still was practicing and doing my own job as an associate vet, I was responsible for these people. And I think now, maybe that was just because I was at this incredible hospital that's how we did it. I think now the culture is such that like, yeah, you get mentorship, but it's really like there's just other people around and you can ask questions on the fly, but don't be too in the way because we've got our own thing going on. And maybe that's not a real thing. Maybe that's just my perception of it. But I think that in the same way that little kids need time and attention, I think that baby doctors need time and attention.
You've often said that the veterinary profession is very slow to adapt. And one of the things I think we're slowest at adapting is the mentorship piece for these early career veterinarians. Why do you think that is? Because veterinarians want to be mentors, they don't know how to be, or veterinarians are so caught up in their own issues that they
That
just don't have the
that
time.
I think that we've got so much on our plate that we're juggling that that's just one more thing to have to add into the mix is to be responsible for somebody else's medicine, not necessarily responsible for the medicine, but to help develop them, to help push them along. And I think that, I raised a lot of baby doctors and I know the trajectory of what's like normal and how long it takes to get to that like functional level of okay, yeah, of course they're still going to have questions and need support, but that they can mostly fly on their own 80% of the time. Like that takes time and not just like a couple months, And so I think that when we're bringing on new grads into our practices, we forget that that means our our workload needs to decrease in order to help them get on their feet faster. And sometimes that's not a trade-off that we're able to make, for whatever reason.
So how do we create a more solid pay it forward type mentality within the profession?
That's a really hard question to answer. I think that, when I think about like the theory of baby doctor boot camp, it's just because I would have the bandwidth to do it, right? That I would be excited to do it. So I think that that's what the profession needs, is people who are maybe that intermediate step before going straight out. And I know that that's what your clinical year is supposed to be, but you're just like drinking from the fire hose on all the information that you have to learn, all the skills that you have to learn, hard skills, soft skills, all of that. There's so much that you have to take in. And then in fourth year clinical year, you're not really making any decisions on your own. Like you're so handheld, and that's an important part of it. But then that first couple years out, like you're wobbling on your own there. And there are going to be times that you fall and you need somebody to be able to kind of like reach out and grab you before you feel overwhelmed so early on in your career.
When you say baby doctor boot camp, what would be, let's say, the 4 biggest things you think you'd want them to go home with? What are the 4 biggest tools that they could have in their tool belt that would help them the second they get back?
For me, record writing was huge. Now there's all this AI stuff that does it, but I felt like before AI scribes, that the most efficient doctor was one that could get their records done quickly and efficiently and not just glaze over it, like a good solid record. I think that's important. And so then when we have AI tools to help, I still think that you need to have the skill set to be able to write that record on your own. I think problem solving, not just the ivory tower medicine, but all of the things in between, and knowing that it's okay to offer a spectrum of care. I think that was an important thing. Some good surgical skills. I've got 3. Delegation. How to delegate tasks to your staff. Not
Well,
be a control freak.
that one's easy. I had Peter Weinstein tell me, he's like, you carry around money in your pocket. And every day a technician catches you doing something that a technician's supposed to do or can do, they ask you for money. And when I was down $44 by like 11:30 in the morning, I got it. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done.
I mean, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good lesson. But I think that a lot of times they don't know how to delegate, or
They don't trust. They
they
don't
don't
trust.
trust. Or I remember as an intern, I was on the emergency shift and there were probably, I don't know, 7 things waiting. And I had this amazing assistant who said, okay, I need you to go look at those x-rays. I've got an ear cytology running. And after that, you need to go into exam room 3 and then come back to me and let me know when you're done. She delegated to me what I needed to do, because like I wasn't able to prioritize anything because I was just so overwhelmed with, oh my God, there's 7 things here. And she was able to break it down into tasks. You go do this, make that decision, go do that, make that decision. And I'm here to support you. I think that we need people like that who know the job to help support. And then I became really great at doing a juggling and multitasking because someone modeled that for me. I was able to then learn from her how to do it.
And well, I think that's the beauty of like owning your own practice, is because you get to choose and train your own staff.
Yeah.
And you get this complete homogenous model that tends to work. But with my staff was amazing. Like I'm almost going to start crying thinking about how amazing they were. But the biggest thing also is they were protectors of me, my associates, and the
Yeah.
practice as well.
Yeah.
And
I,
that's priceless because when you have something like that, when you talk about cognitive fatigue, the concept of always emotionally ruminating about a client and having a staff that will jump in and take care of it for you, it's priceless.
it's amazing. When I had my brick and mortar, there was a period of about 3 or 4 years where our team was just untouchable. We had a lot of fun together. So lots of fun outside of the hospital. But at work, everybody was there to get the job done together. And like we all supported each other and we were all there for each other. And like if you had a bad day, like somebody else was there to kind of help you through it. And it was just like when I when I miss that part of my career, that's what I miss, the team that we had. And then it all kind of changed and there was a lot of things that got different, but that was like the beauty of that clinic was the team.
Where along the way now in your career did you decide, you know what? I need to do something to help with this cognitive fatigue. There's got to be a way to break that cycle.
Yeah, selfishly, it was because I was having some second guessing myself, and it was just a feeling of what
Oh,
am
hold
I?
on. You're second guessing yourself. How long were you out of school?
13 years.
And you started second guessing yourself 13 years in.
Oh yeah, I mean, there. Yes, that doesn't go away. Like you don't just magically know all of the answers, and it can be a case that's not that complicated to some, on a normal day, but like there could just be that time that you can't handle it or not can't handle it. That's not fair, but that your brain's not firing on all cylinders and you're like, why am I struggling so much with this one? Um, yeah. And it was a
More
moment.
caffeine, nicotine, and alcohol. That's what you need.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes. All the substances and all the dopamine hits. Yes. Um, yeah. It's just, I did have a moment of, difficulty with the case, second guessing myself with the case, and I threw it into ChatGPT and was wildly impressed with how good a job it did and how it made me feel. I felt confident in what I mean. I was already thinking that that's how I was going to handle the case, but it gave me like, oh, I'm not crazy. That is a reasonable thought process, and so that's how SmartVet AI was born. Was really just like, okay, I could use this tool. I'm sure many of my other colleagues would also find benefit in something like this. And so that's how I created that platform.
So, what is SmartVet AI?
Yeah, so SmartVet AI is a tool for vets to help with clinical decision making and to help with communication. So, in a nutshell, you upload your history, your exam, and your blood work, and it generates a list of differentials, your next diagnostic recommendations, treatment recommendations, and then it gives a second report that is a client friendly summary that's easy to understand, easy to digest. So it helps with that piece of now simplifying a really complicated case to an owner so that they understand and then they can make an informed decision.
And you make sure you everyone has to understand. You in no way advocate that you dump your stuff in here and it gives you the answer and you go with that.
No, never. I mean, how could a computer know the answer every time? What this does is it's pattern recognition, right? So much of blood work is just recognizing patterns, and on a good day my brain does a pretty darn good job of recognizing patterns, but sometimes I fall short or I'm biased or I may just miss something subtle, and that's where this really shines is because it helps support through that, but no, I am never advocating for us walking away from our clinical intuition, our knowledge, our judgment. I am advocating for support, for helping making decisions when we make so many all the time with incomplete information.
So you have an older veterinarian come up to you. This tool is just as good for them for different reasons than it would be for an early or a baby doc, as you say.
Yeah. What's interesting is, so I've got plenty of subscribers right now, and it is. I assumed that this would be something that was heavily utilized by early career vets. Um, the opposite. I have more than I would have guessed practicing my amount of time or longer that are using it to help support them. And I don't think that it makes us any less than, it's just a way to support us through our day. And I've got all sorts of different subscribers. I mean, I've got mobile practitioners like me who are solo vets. I've got emergency doctors. I've got people who are in a group setting with multiple doctors of varying ages, but they're all finding use from this.
With SmartVet AI, a lot of people are afraid of AI because it's going to make, supposedly it's going to make their brains mush, or it's going to, do all that. Are you afraid? I'm going to take this the other way. Are you afraid that SmartVet AI or any of the AI tools that are out are going to take away emotional intelligence from practicing clinicians?
That's a good question. I think that there are ways that AI makes me sound more human when I'm writing an email, that it helps me regulate my emotional tone a little bit better. I don't know, is that good or bad? I don't know. It makes me feel like I present better. Um, but I think with this, the way that SmartVet has been written and designed is that, especially with the client communication report, it leaves the door open to conversation, because I don't want this to be an open and shut. Here's the answer. Goodbye. Um, this is intended to continue the conversation, and so therefore, we still have to. We can't. We can't abdicate that role. We have to continue to be the drivers of that conversation. This is just a tool to help make it easier to get there.
Is there any technology out there right now you just don't understand what the purpose is in veterinary medicine?
Hmm.
Like
I don't
I could say I don't know why there's 70 scribes out there,
Oh,
for
for
example,
sure, for sure.
right?
And I'm a little bit of like an old man screaming at the clouds when it comes to the Scribe system, because I said earlier that writing a great medical record was something that I felt very strongly about. I mean, my hospital was AAHA Hospital of the Year. That record part was important. So now,
But the record part though, like what I used to see with, my associates is either it's not enough or it's way too much and it's not legible. Right?
yeah,
Those
yeah,
are
that's
the,
true.
and I
And
think that's where scribes come in, but I don't think we need 70 of them, because then it leads to AI fatigue in the profession, and it doesn't allow things like smart vet AI to come in and truly do what they need to do, because the veterinarians are like, man, we don't want to hear another freaking AI
it's so
program.
true. It's so true. Anybody, when I talk to people about SmartVet AI, they just assume it's another Scribe system, because I think that right now that's all that people are using AI for in vet medicine. Where I think that that's just one piece, and that's the one piece of AI that I'm not using in my practice. I use an AI platform that helps schedule my routes as I'm moving. I'm mobile, so I've got something that's a scheduling tool and that notifies my clients as I'm moving along where I'm at. Um, so like I use AI for that. I use AI for the diagnostic support, with SmartVet. Um, I use AI to help me with client communication. I'm not using it for my medical records, but I have heard when it's recording and writing everything into your record, that you're just, now these records are getting so long that when another doctor has to look at it, like you have to comb through so much information before you even get to the meat and potatoes of what you need to know. And so I do think that we have to be judicious as a group of professionals how we're going to use these tools to make our lives better and easier and elevate our medicine, not just make our lives easier at the end.
With SmartVet AI, are you concerned about a misuse risk?
Like people just using it and not paying attention and sending
And
it off.
trusting?
I think that if that's the case, ah, um, yeah, could it happen? Sure, sure. I think that would never be my intention, and I would be sad to see somebody use that and not use their brain to verify what they're working through, because we have an amazing gift and talent, and this is something that we should never let go of. So I'm always going to be clinician first. I do think that we need support. I do think that there are things that can make our lives easier, but I never want it to replace what we do or replace our thinking.
And I think one of the biggest things to get technology more integrated and easier to use is to avoid oh yeah, open up your PIMS. Oh, if you have a second screen or minimize your PIMS, open up SmartVet AI or open up this or open up that, because these PIMS have such gatekeeping around there that it doesn't allow easy integration to practice information software. It doesn't. Is that a good or bad thing?
I think that right now there's a lot of buzz going on about the data. Who owns that data? Who should have access to that data? And right now the PIMS are the ones in charge of all of that. And I'm seeing, on LinkedIn and things like that, people are pushing back on who should be the gatekeepers of that information and who should be owning that information. And it's honestly never something that I'd even considered about until I started reading, these perspective pieces. I do think that the days of PIMS controlling everything are probably numbered. It won't be long before somebody breaks through that barrier and now there's a more integrated approach for everything. It won't be long. And then everybody who's gatekeeping is going to be tossed to the side.
Well, perfect case study of that has got to be this whole Chewy modern merger.
Yeah.
And what the funny thing is, what the one thing that no one's talking about, and I can tell you this as a fact, is that Modern Animal Hospital, at least here in California, had an ad for every single hospital every single day en route. So I kind of look at it like Modern was failing. Modern was thrown a lifeline.
Yeah.
Modern got bought for pennies on the dollar. But now you look at the Chewy situation, because they already had, how much data can they have, right, from their website?
Right.
It's insane. And now they're getting the data from the veterinary clinic. I mean, that's going to be a model that veterinary medicine should be very scared of, but also very interested in. Because
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
it'll
there's
teach
pros and
us a lot
cons.
of stuff. Correct.
Yeah, I think there's pros and cons, and I think that no one corporate is bad. No one corporate is amazing and does everything right. Because if they did, then that's what we would all follow. I think
I'll fight back on that. Not all corporates are bad. There are some corporates out there that are awful.
I agree. I agree.
Flat out awful. They think mental health is a pizza party for lunch.
Yes. Yeah. No, I agree. I think that the corporatizing, how we've become so corporate, because that wasn't, when I came out, I don't know the word, whatever it is. When I came out of vet school, Banfield was the only corporate, or at least was the big one. And there was such a feeling of ick in vet school about, oh, it's Banfield, standardized medicine, and it was this like how we felt about it was so cringe. And that has since evolved. And I'm not bashing Banfield. I'm just telling you what the culture was like when I was.
Hey, you cannot, yeah, you cannot bash Banfield. I work there on the weekends.
No, and they're and you know what, they have done a phenomenal job raising a lot of doctors, and I think
What
that
what what if I told you? What if I told you they have a plan that they call it Senior Care Plus, and it's about $1,200 here in California, and it includes X-rays, ear cytologies, two blood panels, dental with anesthesia, and you also get your vaccines. You get a discount on your flea and heartworm preventative, and you also get a discount on if your animal gets sick. But if your
who
animal
wouldn't do
gets
it?
sick and you still have a blood panel ready left over, you can use it.
And who wouldn't do that? Like, that is good. I think that what Banfield did was it changed the game for pet parents to be able to have access to care. Um, I have no, I probably shouldn't have named names in any event. I just was talking about, like, when we came out of school, that was the feeling, the sentiment. It's not that case anymore. And like, I sold my practice to corporate, when I sold it, like, highest bidder.
Guilty as
So
charged.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So here to say that I do not have a problem with corporate as a whole. I think that there are things that are done well by certain companies. I think that there are things that are totally just taken for granted with others. And I think that right now it's hard for private practices to compete in the same vein. But I also, on the other side of that, I think that they offer more niche type opportunities. And so you can get your market share, your business, just by offering something a little bit different than what people can get at, your corporate practices. So there's enough for
I
everybody.
think private practices can compete hard against corporate. I think it's an easy model. You basically spend time with your clients, you talk
Yes.
to your clients, and you charge 25% less and open up half a block down the street from the corporate.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I mean, they made an easy business model for any baby docs that want to go out there and open up a veterinary practice.
Yeah,
That's for
for
that's
sure.
for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Or
that's what I did. I mean, that's how I made it. Was I was in a very saturated market, and we came in and we're the only fear-free AAHA accredited hospital within 40 miles, and we baked cookies for the dogs and put icing on them, and we had a under the checkout counter was a dog treat area. Like, you can get real cutesy with stuff like that, and
yep.
it was impactful. People felt valued. They felt cared for. They felt like their pet was the only one that I was seeing that day, and that was intentional.
And also, that's the one thing that corporate spreadsheets do not explain.
Right.
And that's why I think you do have a huge, forget the pricing, just the culture is a huge competitive advantage
For sure.
when you compare to corporate practice.
Yeah. But
How much
but
how
what
much how
people
much pushback do you get though when you tell people you sold to corporate? Because I my wife and I were at the point, it was right after COVID.
me
We
too.
we wanted to slow down.
Mhm.
Um, and they were offering
Insane.
insane
Insane.
amounts of money. And my dad had his PhD in economics, and the one thing he always said is everything has a price.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't feel any type of way about. I have no regrets, zero regrets. I mean, I look at the practice now and um, see the changes that have happened, and it's not necessarily what I would have wanted to represent me.
Mhm.
but it's not mine anymore. And so it's not mine to mourn the loss of. I have no regrets. Nobody could have offered what a corporate group offered. You know,
Back then, no. Back
no,
then, no.
no. I sold right after COVID as well. It was an insane time. I think things have backed off. They've cooled off a lot since then. There's been a little bit of a correction, and that's important. I think it needed to happen.
But because, do you think it's because money got expensive, or did they realize they were having a hard time running veterinary clinics that are so siloed in all different cultures and all different PIMS and all different everything that they weren't expecting that?
I, my own personal opinion, and I don't want to get too involved politically. The I think the economy of the time was different than what it is now, and that all of these consolidation groups were cashing in, or they were buying up everything that they could because the market was strong and good. Rebate checks were flowing in, government support was coming in, and so spending was a little bit different. Things have tightened up now. Everything's a cycle. I mean, I came out of school during the recession, where you, you couldn't.
But do we truly get a break? I mean, because think about it. I was thinking about that. I was blessed because I came out of school I graduated 2000. So the early 2000s were great. Then we got nailed by the recession. And then did we really get out of the recession? Were we creeping out of the recession? But then we get nailed with COVID, right? I think as a profession, those, 15 years, 16 years were things that our profession had never seen before.
Yeah, yeah.
It
I
was
think
so
you
hard.
know I've been doing this for 14 years, and I see how much the landscape has changed. Um, and it makes me realize that there's a lot of uncertainty in markets, and how we get compensated can change easily. I mean, when I first came out, I told you I did an internship because that's what you had to do to be able to secure a job, and I took a $30,000 internship, and I
That was
worked.
double what they were offering my people
Yeah,
when
yeah,
I.
and it was, you know what? And I knew that I was going to be working overnights. I knew that I was going to be working 7 on, 7 off. Like, it was grunt work, and I can't speak ill of that practice because it was phenomenal. It was a great place to grow up, but like we were the ones that like were just grin and bear it kind of. Um, and then when I came out, I negotiated for $70,000, and I felt so good about myself for negotiating that. And now it seems that anybody coming out 120 to 140 is pretty much standard offer coming out straight out of school. And
For getting the signing bonus on top of it.
correct, correct. It's just such a different landscape. So different. And then it makes it harder to be affordable when make veterinary care affordable to clients when you're having to pay so much for everything. And like even the staff, when I came out, staff was, an assistant was $9 an hour. You could never do that now. You can't. um, you 15 to $18 an hour, so everything is more expensive. It just is. And that's just a 14-year difference. So I could see how it could swing the other way easily. And then now we're all in a different type of crisis.
Yeah, when I started in veterinary medicine in 1990, I got paid $4.25 an
Wild,
hour.
wild.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Exactly. It is
And look at
wild.
us now.
I look at us now. You know what, Jamie? I always end my podcast with a question, and
Okay.
I'm very interested in what you have to say. What is one irreplaceable truth that you could say about this profession?
That you can change your profession. You can change your role in veterinary medicine, and it's just up to you. That it does not have to be locked in to one thing forever and ever. And what I have found to be the most interesting part of my career thus far is that it has evolved. It has changed. It doesn't look the same as it did 14 years ago. I wouldn't want it to. That would be pretty boring. I don't want to do the same thing in and out. But I love that all I have to do is have a little bit of creativity to do something different and still use my skill set and talent, and find meaning in that.
Well, that was pretty deep. That was wonderful. But you're absolutely correct. You don't, there is no problem with adaptation within the profession. You are allowed to adapt. You can't feel bad to adapt. Even you're still going to be a veterinarian, and it's not. I think adapting, people are scared of because it's going to shatter their identity. But you can stay and be miserable, or you can adapt.
That's the thing. Like, don't stay somewhere just because it's a badge of
What
honor.
you're supposed to do.
Yeah. No, you should never stay somewhere where you're unhappy out of obligation. I think that people do lots of things for lots of different reasons, and they feel stuck for lots of different reasons. And I have felt stuck plenty of times, but the answer is not always an immediate fix. But I think that there can be reinvention in this profession, in so many different ways, and you can find something that fills your cup that may not have done so 5 years ago, or may not do 5 years from now. What I'm doing right now may not be what I feel content with down the road, but I'm happy now.
Well, 5 years from now, you're going to have Baby Doc Boot Camp, and I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
If they want to, if people want to get a hold of you and find out more about SmartVet AI, how would they do that?
Yeah, so you can email me directly. It's Jamie, JAMIE, at smartvetai.com. If you want to check out SmartVet, that would be amazing. It's www.smartvetai.com. And if anybody wants to try it for free, shoot me an email, and I'll give you a 30-day free trial just to give me feedback, because I want to know how to make it better for all of us.
Well, Jamie, thank you so much. And to all the listeners out there, just remember, there are tools out there. Some of them are good, some of them are not. And none of them are going to change the fact that you were trained how to think for 4 years during vet school. Things like SmartVet AI make your job easier, but it doesn't replace your brain. And if you go in thinking that it is going to replace what you wanted to learn, then you're missing the point. AI is an assistant. It always is going to be an assistant. It's cheaper than hiring a veterinary assistant, but it's that assistant that you need to help get answers and help with your communication skills, which is huge. And so, Jamie, thank you again. Thank you. And to all the listeners out there, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Irreplaceable Truths.
Thank you for having me.